My 20s were an absolute fucking shit show. They were horrific. They were that was my hardest decade ever. I was so insecure. I had all these ambitions and dreams, but my God, did I feel deathly ashamed of who I was.
How are you complicit in your own lack of confidence?
Procrastination is it's a safety issue, right? So there's no shame in procrastinating. I think that's the biggest, almost first step. Do not have a discipline problem. You are not lazy. It is a safety issue.
How you almost rebound from it?
I think it's first accepting it's going to feel really uncomfortable and it's going to happen. I had been posting consistently on my TikTok. I was showing up every single day, multiple times a day, and my videos were doing well, and but it wasn't amazing. I don't even know if I want to share this. I almost stopped filming halfway through, posted it, went viral.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I've gained like almost 10,000 followers now. I didn't have to fully heal anything.
Welcome back to Seat at My Table. Today I'm so excited to be joined by Nicola, who is a confidence mentor, really helping so many people gain confidence and also just feel comfortable to be seen and put themselves out there and, of course, reach their goals. So I'm so excited for the conversation today. I am honestly overwhelmed with how much I want to talk to you about. Thank you so much for being here.
No, thank you for having me.
And before we even get started, I would love to ask you my favorite question, which is, how would you describe yourself in 3 words?
Authentic, bubbly, chaotic. I think. I mean, yeah, I could overthink that question. I probably should have said overthinker in one of them. I could overthink that.
I think that's a nice mixture. And I think actually authenticity is something that comes up again and again in your work and what you speak to other people about. So that's probably very apt. And we all have a bit of chaos. So I'd love to start today by just learning a bit more about you and your story. Your journey is one that I love because I feel as though it's filled with courage, starting over again, putting yourself out there, maybe taking a few diversions here and there. And of course, there's some really unimaginably difficult times, like your mum passing away when you were 21. So I'd love to hand the mic to you.
How long have you got? It's a big story. Yeah, I guess weirdly, one of my dreams definitely would be to write a book. I've been told by so many people, you need to write a book, you need to write a book. One day I will. But yeah, I moved around a lot as a kid. So I was born in Zimbabwe. And when I was about 5, we immigrated to the UK. And we were here for about 9 or 10 years. But within that time, I'd been to like 3 or 4 different schools. At the age of 7, I found out my biological dad had died when I was like 3 months old, and that my mum had remarried, and this man was, officially my stepdad. I'd been adopted. And so that was kind of a huge pivotal moment in my journey. And I reference that a lot because I feel like it was a key moment where a lot of my confidence issues and my like safety in being myself and feeling like I was safe to belong really started. Like, I just remember as a kid feeling like I'm the odd one out here, so I learned that my sister was actually my half sister. So we have the same mum, different dad. And I just remember really grappling with these big feelings of somehow I'm the black sheep, somehow like this family unit could so easily operate without me even being here. And so I grew up really insecure. So I had my first therapist at age 7. I remember her name. Her name was Helen. Oh. And I used to go to these therapy sessions and we'd basically just like play. It was basically a 7-year-old's dream room. It had every toy you could play with. I remember her having like this like play kitchen. There were dominoes and, she used to get me to act out my big feelings.
Yeah.
And it was the first time anyone had kind of really given me a proper space to kind of figure out what I was feeling without kind of feeling like it was an issue. But even in that therapy room, I remember being hyper vigilant of what is this woman going to think of me? Is she going to think I'm being dramatic? Is she going to blame me for my feelings? Is she going to tell my parents what I'm saying? So I really grappled from like a really young age around just feeling incredibly ashamed of myself and just really feeling like there was something broken or wrong or missing about me. And then we moved back to Africa. So we moved to a place called Malawi. And about 2 weeks after we arrived, my mum got diagnosed with colon cancer and started chemotherapy. It was successful. I think she did about 3 months of that. And she was like flying back between South Africa, Malawi. Went into remission. And then I decided to go to boarding school because I could feel how codependent I was with my mum, and that I was terrified of getting to the age of 18 and not actually feeling confident enough to leave home.
Yeah.
So I went to boarding school. Mum was in remission. She was healthy. She was doing well again. And then I think I was probably around 18. I'd left school by that point. She went in for like a routine hysterectomy, and they found this massive tumor again, and tried to do an emergency surgery to remove it. And it looks like when they did that, they actually spread the cancer along her C-section scar. And my mum went through another round of chemotherapy, and that was successful until she stopped doing chemotherapy, until the sessions ended, and then these tumors would just grow back. So she got really sick at this point, and she just kind of, it was pretty much downhill from there. And then I remember getting the call that my mum, the night before my birthday, so fast forward a couple years, had been put into an induced coma, and that they weren't sure she was going to make it through the night. And yeah, I remember going to sleep that night before my 21st being like, I know that she's not going to make it. I know that this is the last couple of hours. And I hadn't seen my mum in about 3 months.
Oh my goodness.
Because I was living in Cape Town. My parents were in Malawi. So I woke up the next day, we got the news. And I remember being in this like weird space of checking my Facebook wall, because that we were still writing on people's Facebook walls back then, like reading these happy 21sts, and also then fielding calls from family and friends being like, you know, I'm so sorry for your loss. We've just heard about your mum. And kind of holding these two polarities at the same time. And yeah, it was, again, 2 months later, I moved to London and just thought, this is my time. You know, I had to put my dream, I always knew that I wanted to work for myself. I always knew that I wanted to help other people. It's just life I didn't really have the time. I hadn't had the space. I was still young. I was 21. Like no one gets it right that early. And so I moved to London 2 months after she died, and then spent the next decade kind of realizing how much shame and fear had driven my life, even though I was someone that was courageous. I was brave. I am strong. I am incredibly driven. So I remember just feeling like, why do I still kind of struggle with my confidence when I know I can handle this?
Yeah.
I can handle anything. So it's just that kind of entire journey.
Firstly, I'm really sorry, because I feel like there's so many difficult points there. And I think going back to the conversation we were having actually before we started recording, of looking at someone's journey and it making so much sense, looking at them as a person now and how each piece of their life has gone together to make them.
Yes.
I think the fact that you've dealt with so many huge life events from such a young age that, again, produce massive emotions that probably few people have to feel by that age.
Yeah.
Also makes a lot of sense of why you are now in the position that you are, where you are helping so many people deal with actually sitting in these emotions of shame and fear, and why you're so well qualified to do that as well. Because I think you can probably relate more than anyone. I also think it's amazing. Something you said really stuck with me, where you decided to go to boarding school because you felt that codependency. And instead of feeling that and realizing that you're scared and almost clinging on harder, you were like, you know what? No, I'm going to send myself to boarding school.
Yeah.
And I think to do that at such a young age, where you're doing it to overcome a fear, where you could have actually taken the easy route, stay at home and lean into that, it's just such an amazing thing.
I've not thought about it like that.
Yeah.
I've not thought about it like that. You're right.
And I think it's almost as if your subconscious knew what was coming and you're preparing yourself.
Me and my sister say this all the time.
Yeah.
It was like we instinctively knew, because she also went to boarding school. And I remember when my parents said that we were moving back to Malawi, my two requirements were, I will move again if A, I don't have to go to boarding school, and B, I can continue dancing. Both of those things didn't happen. The school I moved to didn't have a dance club or anything like that. And then I self-elected to go to boarding school. And me and my sister laugh all the time of like, I feel like we just knew deep down we didn't have long with her.
Yeah.
Which obviously you can't ever prove, but yeah.
It's like this knowing.
Yeah, I didn't want to feel resigned by fear. I didn't want to feel like I couldn't trust myself to be away from her. And going to boarding school, as obviously privileged as that is, was one of the best things I ever did for myself. Because it gave me the confidence and the skills that I could do life by myself before I even realized I'd really have to do life by myself.
Yeah. It's amazing, isn't it? And so when you arrived in London, obviously having dealt with this huge grief, again, amazing, you decided to then send yourself across the world. And
I think it was numbing. I think I was just so dissociated. Grief, that first year of grief, people think it's the hardest, and it kind of, your body and your brain, your nervous system is so clever, because you know, it will numb you out of the things that are too big for you to process. And so a lot of people say, yeah, the first year was a bit chaotic and like I did all of these things. I actually found 3, 4, 5 years in more difficult, because now the reality is sunk in.
Yeah.
And you've had time to kind of, that grief kind of creeps up on you, and you've had much more time to realize it's there.
Yeah. And slight detour, but I also love therapy. And I used to have this therapist, and he would say to me, you know, you keep talking about these things that seem really hard, but you're kind of smiling and you're talking about it as if it's nothing. And he was like, my goal is hopefully at some point you'll feel safe enough that the emotion will come through. And I think that is probably quite relevant to grief, where it's too painful. You don't feel safe enough to feel it, because it's like, how will I actually cope with that? So your body shuts it off. And I mean, I can imagine some people don't feel it for decades, you know, because they haven't cultivated maybe that safety in themselves, because it is such a difficult emotion. But I can imagine for you, it took time for you to, feel prepared.
Yeah, I don't think you ever, and grief is, I think that's the funniest thing, that sometimes we can expect, like lots of other things in life, that there is this template, and grief goes like this, and like I will feel, you know, I'll go from this stage to this stage to this stage, and it's so unique, it's so different, it brings out loads of different things. I remember never being able to relate to other people, even 10 years, it was 10 years last year since she died. And I remember seeing lots of posts about people who had lost people, you know, loved ones, parents, whatever, and them talking about this wake-up call that they had when they lost someone, and that was their permission slip or their reality check, that they have to go out there and, you know, go after their dreams and live life to the fullest. And I just never felt that. Yes, I took this huge leap and traveled across the world to London by myself, but I think also I was trying to run away from everything that, you know, Africa not Africa, but where I was really represented, Cape Town especially. So I think that was part of me just running away. But I never really, if anything, losing my mum made me more paranoid about being seen. It made me more paranoid about getting this wrong and about never living up to my full potential. It made me more afraid of life. And so that was my personal journey that really kickstarted, thanks to my grief, was kind of, I was made very aware of how terrified I was of life, not wanting to support me, not wanting to help me make my dreams come true, thinking that there was something, you know, deeply wrong or missing or broken that I needed to fix about myself before it was safe to be seen. And kind of that next decade was like, I just couldn't run away from these feelings that I just learned to operate from. Yeah.
And I do love it because you've spoken on social media and in some of your content about how your 20s were really messy. And so I'd love for you to speak a bit about that, because something that I resent is this idea that your 20s is like the best time of your life. You know, you're meant to be successful before you're 30. You're meant to have everything figured out, and you're just meant to do it all while like being great with seeing friends and like going out partying and being really carefree.
Yeah.
And I think that's just so not the reality for so many people.
Yeah.
And the more you hear that actually the 20s is like the most anxiety inducing time ever, because you have no idea who you are.
Yeah.
You're making so many mistakes. Can you talk to me a bit about when you arrived in London, then I guess the decade after?
Yeah. Can I swear on this?
Yeah.
My 20s were an absolute fucking shit show. They were horrific. They were that was my hardest decade ever. I was so insecure. I had all these ambitions and dreams. You know, one thing I've always known is I'm quite clear on what I want from life. I've never struggled with being self-motivated or disciplined or clear on like, I have big goals and I want to make them happen. But my God, did I feel deathly ashamed of who I was. And mixing all of that feelings of, and I think I've felt ashamed of myself and being myself since I was probably about 6 or 7. So it's such a familiar feeling for me. I almost spent the next kind of up until my 20s not even realizing I was operating from deep feelings of shame. So mix that with now grieving, and the only way I really knew how to cope was through alcohol. So I had an incredibly difficult relationship with it. And I would go out and I would get absolutely blackout drunk. I would become this really nasty, aggressive person. And then you have added to that the shame of waking up the next morning, not remembering anything, and people not believing you that you don't remember anything. And so it was this really dark time for me. I was drowning in my own feelings. And I'd only just recently met my now fiance, and I met him about a year after I moved to London. And, you know, he'd have to come and find me in the middle of London because I'd run away from my friendship group, or, you know, and try and track me down at like 3 a.m. as a girl on her own. Yeah. And he saved me multiple times. The fact that he could love me through some of my darkest moments was massive. It was kind of like the first time I'd really felt that, even though I had incredibly loving parents. My mum adored me. Like, we were thick as thieves, but she was, you know, imperfect. She had a difficult childhood, and I don't want to speak for her. You know, my stepdad and I, again, he absolutely tried his best. We just had a really difficult relationship. It never fully kind of clicked. And so to be loved so unconditionally by this person that has no reason to love me, I'm not blood, it's a pure choice, just kind of gave me a little bit like, I don't know, unclipped my wings a tiny bit. It was really the first time where I was like, gosh, maybe, you know, there is something here. Maybe it is safe to be myself. Maybe there are other people who would just accept me for me with all my, you know, complexities and quirks and baggage, without having to constantly walk through life as if I'm trying to guess who the world needs me to be. Yeah. And that's how my 20s felt. I was really grappling with this idea of like, I need to fix myself. So I used a lot of self-development to try and work out what was wrong with me. I need to get rid of my fear. I need to get rid of my insecurities. I need to get rid of my shame. I need to stop being so afraid of life. And all that did was just make me feel more paranoid about being myself. And I remember I'd started my second business by that point. First one also failed because I did not know how to feel confident enough to put myself out there properly and promote my business. So this was my second one during COVID. And yeah, so I got to this point where I was just using self-development as this crutch, as this way of trying to fix what's wrong with me. Why do I feel so insecure all the time? Why do I have all these doubts? Why am I so ashamed of myself? And then the only thing it did was made me feel more paranoid. You know, I was terrified of feeling the wrong thing. I was terrified of what my big, uncomfy feelings were. And like, I've always been an emotional person. I'm a sensitive soul. Like, I am emotional. And so to tell an emotional person to now correct their emotions was literally the worst advice ever. And I got to a point during COVID where my second business now was really kind of starting to fail. And I had this massive breakdown. And I remember being so exhausted because I blamed my lack of success on the fact I'd not fixed myself yet. And I hadn't become the version of myself the world needed me to be, or like life needed me to be, in order to then support me. And I just had this massive breakdown. And I remember just out of pure desperation and exhaustion, just putting down all these like self-development tools. And I lay on my bed and I think I probably cried for about an hour and a half. I just, all of the shame that I had suppressed and tried to get rid of, all of the grief, all of the despair that my life wasn't what I had wanted it to be by the age of 27.
Yeah.
And just all these really big feelings that no one had ever told me was safe to feel. It was things that were getting in the way. They're blocking your success. And it was the most peace I have ever felt. It like genuinely changed something for me. It changed the trajectory of my life.
Yeah.
All because I was just starting to, it felt like on a very cellular level, a very basic level, I was making it safe to be myself in that moment. And that was massive.
Yeah. I mean, there's so much that you covered there. And but in like the most lovely way possible. And I almost just also want to acknowledge how beautiful it is that you, in a time when you hadn't yet managed to probably love yourself as much as you deserved, you had someone witnessing you, and what you probably felt like was the most shameful version of yourself and vulnerable version of yourself, and his love through that, I can imagine was this wake-up call of, wow, I can be what I deem to be the worst version of myself, and he's just here kind of coming to get me when I'm wandering around London, like unsafe. And it's also just so powerful to have those people in your life, so when you're not quite ready to see yourself in that way yet, you can piggyback off their view of you.
Yeah, I think it's a big myth that people think that this work is done in isolation. It's not. It's done through, some of the best therapy tools are literally hanging out with your friends, going outside and getting some fresh air, being with people that reconfirm and can kind of help you remember in the moments that you forget that you are safe to exist and people really do love you and want you around. Instead of like being in this internal panic of, what do I need to do so that people will love me? What do I need to fix myself before I'm safe to be seen? It's kind of this untangling of some deep-seated shame.
And I think the self-help point is just so good. I'm trying to think of a better word to use, because good is the worst adjective. But it's just, I want to say funny, but it's not funny. It's just, I went through such a stage where I became so obsessed with like self-help, and I'm such a like poster child of really hard on myself, like never doing enough, always like, if you wanted to, you could be successful. So what are you not doing that means that you're not successful? And I went into this rabbit hole of like self-help and doing all these things. And I think I was actually the worst person ever, because I just became really intolerant of other people's imperfections. It's like, well, actually, maybe you should be doing this and maybe you should change your life like this, because that's what I've done. And you know, look how great my life is now. And obviously it wasn't. And I just think it's funny because you can fall into this pit. And again, I love the phrase, I can't actually think of the exact words of the phrase, but basically, if you're waiting for perfection, you're just procrastinating. There's actually a really good phrase that's just completely different. So I'll send it to you later when I remember it.
Yeah, please.
But it's just this idea that waiting for perfection is just always going to mean you're procrastinating because you're never going to reach it. And I think people hide behind that. And something you've said before that I think was so powerful is how are you complicit in your own lack of confidence? And, you know, how is that serving you? And I think this is a really powerful point and links to this, because I think a lot of people are complicit in a lack of self-confidence because they're waiting for, okay, I'll feel confident when I achieve this or when I do this. But actually how that is serving you is it's giving you an excuse not to do the scary thing until you reach that. And so you're shielding yourself from putting yourself out there until you reach this point of perfection.
Yeah.
And so you're kind of letting yourself off the hook. It's like, oh, well, I don't have to post anything yet because I haven't perfected exactly what I'm going to post, or I don't have to be vulnerable yet because I haven't gone through 100 therapy sessions and know exactly why I am the way that I am.
Yes. Yeah. Procrastination is always, it's a safety issue, right? So there's no shame in procrastinating. I think that's the biggest, almost first step. Recognize, okay, this is what I'm doing. I'm procrastinating again. I think that I need to do more. I need to learn more. I need to go and get more qualifications. I need to have more experience. And what I found is that a lot of highly ambitious, driven, self-motivated people do not have a discipline problem. You are not lazy. It is a safety issue. And there's like quite a strong correlation with growing up as a hypervigilant child and becoming this incredibly driven person as an adult. And when that's the case, what often happens is the reason why we don't do the things that we want to do, the reason why we are afraid to be seen trying or put ourselves out there, is because we feel deeply ashamed of who we are and terrified of being witnessed by the world without controlling how people are perceiving us. So when you are when you are procrastinating, and I think this is my intense dislike with a lot of the language in self-development, is that, you know, self-sabotage is considered this really shameful thing that you need to stop doing. It's this, that. You're doing what you know in order to keep yourself feeling safe. So procrastination feels safer than putting yourself out there. Hence why we do it. It makes you feel like you're being productive without having to share that with the world, without actually having to take the risk of being seen and not being for everyone. So it's just, you get to a point where when you understand that what you are deeply craving is the permission to be yourself and to feel safe to be imperfect, to feel safe to have these big uncomfy feelings, and make that something that's not a shameful thing. Like, yeah, of course, it is incredibly vulnerable to be seen trying. It's incredibly vulnerable to put your ideas out into the world. It's incredibly vulnerable to start a business. Like, you have absolutely no control over how people are going to respond to this, whether they're going to like it, whether they're going to pull it apart. And I think if we can change the conversation around this from, you need to stop self-sabotaging yourself, to what do you need in order to normalize the fear that comes with setting something up for yourself, going after your dreams, being seen trying. Like, I think we'd see a lot less procrastination, perfectionism. It's kind of it's almost like a systemic issue or a societal issue that we feed into because we think that's what's required of us.
Yeah, definitely. And I guess the question I have off the back of that is, how do you start to work on feeling safe to do that? Like, how do you start to overcome that without falling back into, well, I've got to fix loads of issues and go back to self-help and, you know, become comfortable with that discomfort? Like, where do you even start?
Yeah. I mean, it's a big thing and it's a practice, right? This isn't it's not what do they call it? A quick fix. There's no magic pill for this. But if you resonate with being someone that's highly ambitious, knows exactly what you're going for, but tends to operate from this intense amount of shame and fear, the first thing you want to do is just acknowledge that's what's happening. Acknowledge when you're procrastinating. Acknowledge when you're not doing something that you want to do. Acknowledge when you are trying to perfect and over-criticize yourself and rebrand yourself every 3 weeks. And instead of shutting those things down, can you spend 60 to 90 seconds just feeling that intense discomfort that you currently feel? Because that's why we reach for procrastination. It's the only tool and way we know how to create a sense of safety within us. Momentarily, it's temporary. That's the only thing. It doesn't actually work long term. And instead, just start to normalize. You're allowed to have these big uncomfy feelings. You're allowed to feel afraid. You're allowed to feel doubtful, insecure. And the more you can kind of lean into, which really just means get curious. What does shame feel like in your body? What does the fear of being seen feel like? Does it feel like a tightness in your chest? Does it feel like a knot in your tummy? Does it feel like a heaviness in your legs or your back? and not need this thing to go away.
Yeah.
Don't need to fix it. You don't need to overcome it. It's just like a smaller version of yourself that's got so used to being in an environment where you didn't know if it was safe to be seen as yourself. You didn't know if, the world would see you as inconvenient or messy or not enough or not too, or too much. And it's this little child kind of pulling on your shoulder, being like, hang on, like, I thought being more seen is dangerous for us. It's your coping mechanisms. It's really nothing that you have done on purpose because you don't want yourself to succeed. It's like learning to work with your quirks, your big feelings, your self-sabotage, if you want to call it that, and get curious about it.
Yeah. And so rather than, I guess, seeing it as this really terrifying thing that you're trying to run away from or shut the door to, you're almost like, it's like a friend, like, oh, so tell me about yourself.
Yeah. And it can be a really awkward, uncomfortable friend. It can be like quite intimidating. Yeah. It's about learning how to make this present moment, the version of yourself that exists right here, right now, with the amount of achievements that you have, with the lack of achievements, that, the things that you still want to achieve, without making that an unsafe place to be.
Yeah.
Like who you are and who you represent in this moment, exactly where you are in life, is allowed.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it's unbelievable how many people don't feel like that is the case.
Oh, 1,000%. Yeah. And you only have to look at societal conditionings, systemic issues, political landscapes to understand why so many people feel like it's not safe to be themselves. And there are certain demographics of people who quite literally have had that evidence reconfirm that it's not safe for them to be seen.
Yeah.
So it's this kind of collective, I guess on a micro level, we do it for ourselves in order to then be able to let ourselves be seen by other people that can see themselves in our stories and understand, okay, maybe there might be some way for also me to feel the same way.
Yeah.
And then on a collective level, changing the language around how safe it gets to exist as imperfect, messy, different human beings who all ironically have the same thread.
Yeah.
That we connect to, and that's our vulnerability, that's our imperfection.
Yeah. And I think actually vulnerability and imperfection is so much more interesting.
Yeah.
Like it makes the world so much more interesting and exciting, and actually people are going to find they're probably more successful when they are open and vulnerable because more people connect to them and relate to them and follow them. There's actually just so much that I want to dive into that I feel like if I had the time, you'd be here for like 24 hours.
The next week.
Mini series of 100 episodes. So where do I even want to start? I think it's really funny because I really like the way that you talk about giving yourself permission and also sitting in these emotions. And I am someone who is notorious for being toxically positive.
Okay, interesting.
As my twin would say.
Yes.
And so this is something that is like I really need to overcome to the point where I didn't cry. Embrace. To the point where, now if I'm crying, it's like, yay, like she shed a tear. And I think it obviously comes from not feeling safe to feel that emotion, not knowing how to cope with big emotions. Or even being scared that feeling sad and not feeling super motivated all the time is actually, it's really unproductive. I'm not going to be as efficient. I'm not going to get to where I want to go if I just sit around feeling sad.
Yeah.
But obviously there's loads of negatives that come from that. And it's just funny because as I spoke about my twin to you earlier, she's actually really good and almost can't avoid feeling emotions. So there's definitely a lot of dynamics being a twin that goes into this that we could also talk about for hours. Yes. But she feels really big, strong emotions. And I almost suck emotions out when they start to come up because like, okay, I don't have time for this. I need to go on. And something that I saw that you have spoken about is actually this method to sit in your emotions. I think it's called the SAFE method, which is very apt because it's all about allowing yourself to feel safe enough to feel it.
Yeah.
But can you talk a bit about that method and also how you even came to that and where you discovered, I guess, the power in actually just feeling your emotions?
So the SAFE method was born from that really, that breakdown during COVID where I was just like, I actually can't function any longer believing that I am broken. Like, I'm just so frustrated. It's made me more paranoid about being myself. So in hindsight, obviously, I didn't come up with this in the moment. It took me a couple years later. So the SAFE method is a practical application, because when we say feel your feelings,
it's like, how do you do that?
Ironically, people like we're not taught these basic skills in school. And I could speak for hours on how I believe that a lot of the issues we face in society nowadays is because people don't know how to process their emotions.
I agree.
And so they act from these really violent, greedy places. And so the SAFE method starts with, so SAFE is what's that word?
Acronym?
Yes, acronym is an acronym. So S is spot the sensation. So a lot of people, so basically you take 60 to 90 seconds, as I always say, and you're just going to close your eyes. You're going to just, this is better to do when you can do it in a self-reflective place and you can be at home. S stands for spot this sensation. So you want to find where this sensation kind of arises in your body. Again, almost getting out of the habit of thinking that your feelings are things to fix and solve, and actually physical sensations you want to feel. So you just spend some time. Is it a heaviness in my legs? Is it a lot of mine is like a tightness in my tummy. That's where I tend to feel the most of mine, which correlates with shame. Shame, we tend to really, it sits in your lower belly. Then A stands for assess its qualities. So one of the reasons why people struggle to kind of get into more of a somatic, so a bodily focused practice, is because we think, I need to switch off my mind. My mind's going crazy. Can't switch off your mind, right?
We've tried.
We have tried. So you just want to give it a different job. You want to redirect some of that mental energy from, I need to fix this problem, this feeling. Where's it come from in my childhood? Why is it here? Is it valid? To now, can you just assess its qualities? Like, if it had a temperature, what would it be? If it had a color, would it be orange, red, whatever? Is it moving? So just, again, drawing attention back to the sensation. F is this mantra, to feel safely. So it is safe to feel this in my body. So if you can name the emotion, amazing. It is safe to feel shame in my body. It's safe to feel afraid that I'm not doing enough in my body. And then E stands for ease the need for explanation. Sometimes feelings don't make sense and they're layered as well. So you could start with this baseline of thinking you're terrified of being seen, and it moves into I am afraid that I might be broken, or, it kind of moves and shifts. So that's the SAFE method.
Yeah. I just think that's so good, because I think it's so funny, because you do hear so much that you just need to feel your emotions, you need to sit with it. But again, like you mentioned, we've never been taught the tool of doing that.
No.
And also our body is really kind and amazing things. And it thinks that when you go through difficult times, it's safer to cut off that emotion. So like when you have huge grief, it's actually doing you a really big favor.
Yeah.
Shutting off that emotion.
Yes.
Because it's thinking, okay, we're not quite ready to feel that yet.
Yes.
But we're never taught how to counteract that and then get to the point to feel safe, to then kind of get back into our bodies. And I don't know if you've ever read the book, The Body Holds the Score.
Yes.
I love that book. And I think, going back to what you said, I think so many things in society is linked to people not being able to process their emotions or have the tools to feel certain emotions. And I think it also then goes into our health as well. And because you hold so much tension, but we're so disconnected to our bodies, we're not then going back into them and almost easing them and letting the emotion go.
Yes.
Kind of blocking it away.
Yeah. And like safety, the thing that I always feel like I have to caveat with this work is sometimes this response isn't appropriate. If you don't have basic needs being met, if you are not in a safe physical environment, dropping into your body is the last thing you want to do. That's when your freeze response, where your disassociation, where your fight or flight modes are really important. You are surviving in that scenario. So this really is a practice slightly further down the line where you have basic needs met, you feel like you have safe space, that you don't have to be so hyper vigilant. You can actually spend 90 seconds in your, getting to learn how to be in your body, because it's not always accessible for everyone. And I think this is also, again, some of the language around this type of work really needs to be more accessible. And obviously not all practitioners and people like myself can focus on all areas. I focus on a very small area of this journey and this process. But knowing that if you are not at this point, that's okay. There's nothing to be ashamed of. You just need some more basic needs met, and there will be another therapy tool or another practice or another practitioner or whatever it might be that can support where you are specifically, and not making this journey such a hierarchical thing. Like, this is, I don't claim for a second that there is some holier than thou state of existing that is unlocked when you can, I don't know, feel everything, and fully healed doesn't exist, is what I'm trying to say.
Life's messy. You get
oh my God,
hurt all the time.
Yeah.
Even the tiniest thing.
Yeah. I still self-sabotage. I still procrastinate. I still doubt myself. I still have moments where I feel ashamed of even though I literally teach other people how to move through and navigate these experiences so they can make it safe to be seen. But that is the entire point. We're human. I think we've forgotten that there's, let's be and allow ourselves to be more human, instead of letting this kind of capitalistic multi-billion-dollar industry feed us some version of a cure that directly speaks to such a deep fear that I think all humans have, that there might be something wrong with us, that we might not be good enough to be here.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think something else that I want to touch on as well that goes into this is going back to being seen and putting yourself out there and being vulnerable. And obviously we're talking about allowing yourself to feel these emotions, because obviously actually emotions are amazing. They're signals. Like, the full human experience is feeling every single emotion. But it's about how you almost rebound from it. So I think something as a founder, as someone who works for themselves, but also who is doing something vulnerable, like putting themselves out there every day, and especially in the world of social media, where actually, like you mentioned, it's almost like an engine that a lot of people rely on to get their message out there. I feel like you're also opening up yourself to a lot of rejection.
Oh, yeah.
So obviously posting online is just, you're literally opening yourself up to rejection on mass scale when you don't get the response you want, or you made a post about, like, within your business, you're pitching quite a lot, and then you might get ghosted by some, rejected by some, but you have to keep picking yourself back up and working through this fear, embarrassment, all of those negative emotions where you're questioning, okay, maybe my work isn't good enough, or why am I not getting the reaction that I want? I think so many people need to hear, firstly, that's okay.
Yes.
But also maybe hear some tips on how to just rebound from that and not let that stop you from putting yourself out there.
I think it's first accepting it's going to feel really uncomfortable and it's going to happen. For example, like I was telling you earlier, I had this viral video last week on my TikTok. It's almost at 500,000 views now. That week and that day specifically, I felt horrendous. I felt like such a failure. I felt like such a fraud. I had been posting consistently. So I set myself this challenge this year to post every single day, especially on my TikTok, but I repurpose a lot of content and I'm on every other platform. And I was showing up every single day, multiple times a day, and my videos were doing well, and, but it wasn't amazing. And, I have some big goals that I want to achieve, and that just wasn't good enough. And so that week, that day, I was just like, what am I doing? I don't really know. I remember finishing this video and thinking, I don't even know if I might just delete this. I don't think it's that great. I don't even know if I want to share this. I almost stopped filming halfway through. Anyway, I posted it, went viral.
It's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, I've gained like almost 10,000 followers now since that. And it was like 10 days. And I didn't have to fully heal anything. I doubted myself. I felt like a fraud. I felt like a failure. But because I have made my ability or my capacity to make really uncomfortable emotions about where I am or who I am so safe to feel in my body, I have the capacity to move through really uncomfortable feelings and still do the things I know I need to do to put myself out there. So it's about really understanding, what are those fears that trip you up? What are the things that you subconsciously or consciously look for? Like, is it the likes? Is it the views? Is it the engagement? External validation? Is that the thing that trips you up? Okay, that's one of your fear. Like, under that, you were trying to use external validation to numb some form of fear. So when you don't get that, you're left with the fear. You internalize the fear as shame because you're like, I shouldn't be feeling this. And you give up. Or you go back and you say, I need to rebrand myself. I need to look at what other people are posting content about and fix myself into that mold, because that's clearly what the world wants. So it's understanding what that trigger moment is for you. And that will always be linked to some form of fear and some form of shame.
Yeah.
Like, again, if you are an ambitious person, an ambitious woman, you won't have a discipline issue. It's not laziness. It's safety. It's something is kind of feeling big in your system and you don't actually know how to make that feel safe to feel, so you can continue to put yourself out there. Rejection. I was like, where were we next? Rejection again. Oh, God.
It's such an uncomfortable feeling.
It is uncomfortable, but you almost, there's this guy on TikTok that he was having a viral moment like last month. I'm sure he's still. And he's this American guy. He's in sales. He sells life insurance. And he's made rejection such a fun game. Like, he puts on this music. He has his like spiel that he normally does, and he records his sales calls. And like 9 times out of 10, the ones that he posts are all rejections. Like, they don't give a shit. They're just like, stop calling me. And they hang up, he hangs up, and then he just like dances his way out of it. And I think when you can change the meaning, that's an additional layer. When you can change the meaning of rejection, you change the way you experience it. So like, there's this quote going around at the minute that's like, what if you're 100 rejections away from like the biggest opportunity of your career opening up for you? How would you view the next 100 rejections? It changes the experience.
You do it really quickly, like, be excited to get rejected.
You see it as productive and not a personal failing. And so many of us have internalized that rejection we felt as a child as, my environment didn't accept me for who I was, whether that was because you were bullied at school, whether that's because you grew up as a hypervigilant child and you didn't have an environment that really reaffirmed it was safe to be you. You know, you internalize this later on as, that happened to me because I wasn't good enough. So getting really aware of what your little niggly triggers are. And instead of trying to fix them, instead of trying to make them go away, can you get curious? Because there are things in there that are so powerful for you to understand and get to know yourself on a much deeper level, to understand why you do the things that you do and why you don't do the things that you want to do.
Yeah. I think that is such an important thing to reframe, because when you listen to so many people who we just see their success and it looks like it's all like flowers.
That's the other issue. Yeah.
And then when you actually deep dive into their story, they've been rejected hundreds of times.
Yeah.
But they just believed so strongly in what they were doing, or found a way to reframe it, or had a sales job that desensitized them to rejection. Like, that's what made them successful. And I always say to like friends and my boyfriend and everyone, it's like, the difference between successful and non-successful people is that they just didn't give up. They just kept going and they were persistent enough that they started to put themselves out there. So like, every pitch you do, you're like sending out signals about yourself. Even if you don't hear back or you get a rejection, you're learning and you're getting used to it, and you're refining your craft. And I also interviewed another guy once called Cecil, and he's co-founder of Foundervine, which is a hub for startups. And he talks about the evolutionary need to fear rejection. And it's like, well, you had to be part of a tribe, otherwise you wouldn't survive. And so it's like, maybe actually think, okay, it's normal to hate rejection, but like, it's not going to kill me anymore. And remind yourself it's not going to kill you. It's just uncomfortable, and then you'll go over it.
Yes, 1,000%. And a lot of the fears that we have are these very archaic parts of our survival mechanisms that work so well for us at a time, but they kind of have never been readjusted. They've never, it's like your MacBook or your, I don't want to be a Mac, what is it? Non-inclusive. But it's like your computer software not having an upgrade for 30 years. It's just understanding. And that's why so much of this, which you would have if you were someone that's likely to have used self-development to fix yourself, the likelihood is you're incredibly self-aware. You just want to shift what you're utilizing your self-awareness to do. Are you using it to fix yourself, or are you using it to get curious about what you actually need to feel safe to be yourself?
Yeah. And I think that's probably a lot of reflection that many of us need to do. I honestly can't believe how quickly the time has gone.
Is it gone?
It's been like an hour.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But I literally knew this was going to happen.
Yeah.
And I still have so much I want to talk to you about. But I think I would just love to finish with you talking about your big goal, because something that I love about you is that you're so open and sure on what your goals are and this vision that you have. And I just want to give you a space to tell everyone what that is.
Thanks. Sometimes I feel incredibly delusional to the point where I worry about that delusion biting me in the ass one day and just be like, your
delusion's great.
Those X Factor auditions, you're like, who let you get to this audition in the first place?
But you still admire those people though.
Yeah. But I am like, your environment needs a little bit of an adjustment there. There's nothing wrong with good criticism, constructive criticism. But no, my mission is to become a world-renowned emotional safety and confidence mentor. I want to travel the world, letting people and reminding people and creating these safe spaces for people to remember that they've never been broken. And that a lot of the things that we struggle with, we all struggle with it. And if we could just normalize and change the experience around being sensitive, being uncomfortable, having doubts, insecurities, being imperfect, I wonder how many more talented people would come out of the woodworks that would then change systems, policies, political landscapes, make this world a much more inclusive and positive space to be in for everyone. And I really feel like the safety to be ourselves is a massive key in that. And that starts with, I really want to write a book. I would love to write some children's book. I was telling my fiance earlier, I'd love to get into children's education. And like, one of the big dreams is it'd be so cool to develop a part of the curriculum that taught primary school kids, how to feel their feelings, or what do we do with that like uncomfy feeling of shame, or, so I have loads. I have loads, but that's the main one. Yeah. That's the main one.
Well, thank you so much.
Well, thank you for having me.
This conversation. It's just been so refreshing. Honestly, watching your content, like preparing for this interview, just completely shifted my own mindset and made me feel amazing. And I just know that you'll be doing that for so many other people. And yeah, I just think that you'll achieve all these goals, to be honest. So I can't wait to see it. I'm like, oh my God, I interviewed her.
No, thank you for having me. I've loved it. I could natter all day. Yeah. Honestly, I'm a speaker. I get paid to yap. This is ideal. So thank you.